The road to nowhere. I'll see if I can change it.
Fucking Spain's beating Japan already. Can't believe it. Apparently we're live. It says live. Yeah.
But I think we're probably muted by Flatside.
Oh, I had to add myself to stream. Oh, wow.
All right, dude. We were just watching the football while I was waiting. I just
yeah.
I'll switch it off.
Just telling everybody to go to the link, please. Oh, this is kind of a okay. There we go. We got people in StreamYard. So tonight is going to be a bit different, guys. Can't seem to get OBS to go live tonight. So we're on StreamYard, and I think it only has an hour session. If that does happen, then we just roll over to another one. We'll see how it goes. So thank you, Brian's Logic and Adam Meaken, for coming. Hope you guys are doing well.
Hey, Flatside, thanks for having us.
It's good to have you guys. I'm always excited to have you guys on because you bring such awesome information.
Yeah, good to be here, mate. Good evening, everyone.
It's good to see everybody. Okay. So what is the topic tonight, Adam?
Well, it's a couple of bits, isn't it? I want to give just like an old school presentation. I think it's 2018. This is from, which was just a lot of people have heard of the Paul on the plane stuff, you know, and Daryl Marble does it with spirit level and stuff. But Paul did it with an accelerometer, switching it off, calibrating it, switching it off, and then taking it over supposed curvature. And in part of that, back in the day, we had a number of chats thinking about, you know, how and what to do. And the one thing I wanted to do was plot some vector. You know, I'm a geek. I love a bit of maths, you see. So I'm thinking it in terms of, well, how can I maths that? So I'm thinking, well, it would seem sensible that I could explain the flight of the plane in vectors. So I always disagreed with the, you know, how do you get rid of 500 foot of accumulated altitude? That's easy. And I'll come into that in the presentation. But as I tried to imagine it, how do you traverse a ball with vectors? And I keep saying vectors because that's what planes fly on. They have a gyroscope in the cabin, you know, that keeps them straight and level. It's a straight level flight, which is defined by the artificial horizon, the gyroscope in it. So that's its designed to fly. So it seemed a bit mathy. So I wanted to just take that and see if I could get some data, which I did. So that's kind of what the presentation's about, and its implications if you are going to traverse a ball with certain equipment on board, like a gyroscope in the cabin, or an accelerometer on the phone, which is what I use. I film the accelerometer, the spirit level bubble that's
I just want to quickly read out a super chat from, thank you, Godzilla37. Thank you for the $7 super chat. Please read this properly to help that Nathan fellow to know how it's done. Love you, Nathan. To know how it's done. Thank you very much for the super chat. Yeah, go on. Sorry.
No, so that's kind of where we're at in terms of, you know, I just want to go over that. And it was something I think it's important, because as we analyze their claims, this is not a flat earth claim. This is just analysis of reality and the implications of their claim, which is often the best thing to do to undo it, just to actually look at it logically and see the implications of the claim they make and what we're doing. And that's all we're going to do, is just go through that your claim, your surface, implications, mismatch.
Yeah,
Then
exactly.
hopefully Brian will add a bit more technical detail for us, because my presentation is very much dumbed down. Hopefully it's the concept for you to grasp, and then for the geeks, you see Brian will add a bit technical detail.
But that's why I like when you guys also come together. You guys both have you have a unique way of describing something, and Brian also has a very unique way. So you take it from both kind of angles to make a complete package, and that's why I like if you guys actually come together.
Adam obviously has better maths than me, but we work good together as a team. So, and Adam's presentation, it actually doesn't need anything I have to add to it. Doesn't need any of that. If people understand what he says, they'll understand. It's not just that it's not a globe; it's that it can't be a globe, and this is proof of it.
Yeah, especially if they're going to watch tonight's, then it's just simple. It cannot be a globe.
Yeah, air travel is definitely my favorite proof that it's not a globe, because it's totally definitive and anyone can learn about it, even if you haven't been able to experience it. Anyone can learn about the basics of how the lift effect works and what pilots actually do and what they don't do. And there's no way out of that. And what's really good about it is that we actually we have maths on our side, so we don't like our opposition for years have always tried to lean on the maths, but we have maths on our side. We don't just have what's the word I'm looking for? Tangible proof, which is what we also have the maths to go with it to show. There's no way around it. There's actually 5 different things to do with air travel that show that it can't be what they say it is.
Yeah, exactly. And it's so telling. I mean, even like this thing with Wolfie, where I just told him he literally just has to do one simple demonstration to show he's flying great circle routes. And he's making excuses beyond belief just to take a compass and just stick it down in the cockpit instead of just saying, "Okay, I'll do it." He's literally just making excuses why it won't work.
Well,
we interviewed Max Egan after his flight where we did that, took a compass. It's inconclusive, but it does show it doesn't follow the route on a globe or what they're purporting to, and the TV screens on the back of the headrest.
Yeah, because you simply just need it to, let's just say he's just got it there. Even if it's picking up something in the cabin, you'll know. If he's taking an actual bank, you'll see if it deviates or not. I mean, it doesn't really have to be accurate. If it shows deviation when he banks, then you know, okay, it's picking up movement. You're banking, so it's saying. So if he's taking his great circle route, because instrumentation shows he's taking a great circle route, they're supposed to show deviation on that compass. If it now doesn't show deviation, but it did show when he did the banking, that means they're not taking a great circle route. They're simply flying straight, and their instruments are so-called saying it's flying a great circle route. And that's why it's not a globe. It's just stating it's flying over a globe.
Well, the whole great circle route thing is a farce, because all that is a straight line on a map. And what they do is they use the universal transverse Mercator. They deal with celestial navigation, but they do it also with aerospace, where they'll plot a route on the universal transverse Mercator, which will be an incorrect distance, let's just say, simply because you're dealing with a rectangular map that has the countries and continents in the wrong position. Then what they'll do is they'll correct the distance, right, and the direction. They correct the distance, but then they will, with the Haversine formula, but they will also then make the decision, because it's a decision that's made through the process at harvest time, they'll make the decision to bend the route. So there is no absolutely zero proof of a great circle route outside of them deciding to bend the route. The route is the same length and the same distance, would take the same amount of time, whether it's straight or curved, because the line distance doesn't change. What changes is them deciding to bend the route. Mathematically, that is it. There is no such thing as a great circle route outside of the claim of a circle. There's no tangible proof that they are flying in a circle, because there can't be, because the lift effect makes it impossible for that to happen. For an aircraft to fly horizontally, it needs to fly with the core line of the wings above horizontal and the nose above horizontal. That's the only way it can hold 100% positive lift. If it doesn't do that, then it won't be flying horizontally. And anything that, and this was even on anything, and I presented Wolfie with this, which is official reference from, I think it was Boeing or someone, where anything below horizontal, any pitch below horizontal is officially a descent. Now, for them to do what they are claiming to do, which would be a great circle route, it's impossible to ever fly horizontally. They have to be below horizontal pitch at all times.
The officially is interesting, because it's an interesting term, because officially it has to be. There's no way you can control an aeroplane with it pointed in that direction and it not be called a descent. However, that's not how aeroplanes descend. Aeroplanes always descend nose up still. Yeah. In fact, if anything, as they descend, their nose becomes even more up, because flying is a balance between thrust and speed, upward thrust and forward thrust, put simply. Yeah. And it's that balance of the aeroplane that's crucial. Planes, only fighter jets do that sort of stuff. Yeah. Real planes never do anything other than nose up. But that is why technically, yes, and truth, if any angle is below the horizontal, then it has to be defined as a descent. So
yeah, when a plane is flying at cruising altitude, commercial airliner, let's just say, or any plane, they'll be flying with a 3 to 5 degree above horizontal pitch. If that commercial airline or any plane wants to fly faster, what they have to do is push the nose down slightly to about a +2 degrees above horizontal pitch. And the reason they must do that is because the thrust will create more lift, right? So they have to do that, because otherwise what they'll end up in is what's known as a stall, where they'll cause the nose to go up so high, they'll end up in a position that they can't fly in. So they'll end up not vertical, but they'll end up heading to be close to vertical. And then they can't control the plane and whatever. So they must push the nose down when they add speed beyond cruising speed. At cruising speed, cruising altitude, they will be 3 to 5 degrees above horizontal. That's how they fly. If they push the nose, if they add thrust to bring up their speed, their airspeed, then they have to push the nose down slightly. But it never goes below +1. It never, even if it even goes to +1, it never goes to +1 degrees above horizontal. It can never go below horizontal, because then they start losing positive lift. Even with a cambered wing, it starts losing positive lift. So, and that's officially a descent once they go below horizontal.
And when they're coming in, right, if I can just add in on that, and you might see some numbers on the screen now. I bothered to record these angles.
You'll just have to present though, Adam.
I will do. I'm going to start it in a sec. I just wanted to make this point. So when you see the numbers, they're only on there is a video which will bore you senseless. It's just look me filming my phone. It's there if anybody wants it. But what I want to say is mine fluctuates between 1 and 3 degrees, and solely because when I got on the plane, it's kind of angled, and I calibrate it on the floor of the plane. Now, anyone who's got on a plane, you can see that the plane's slightly angled as you get on. So But I'm still demonstrating the same point, and we'll get into it. Maybe I should start.
Just before you do, I just want to add in for balance, Adam, to the audience that when the pilot flies slower, they must fly with the nose higher, and that's why when they come into land, they're flying at a +10 to +12 degree angle, because to hold 100% positive lift, they need to have a higher angle above horizontal. But to ever fly in any way at all, they have to fly with the chord line of the wings and the nose exactly as on screen above horizontal. To go horizontal, to fly horizontally, that's the way the plane must be angled. And if you get on a commercial flight, you will notice that on the commercial flight, the nose, when you're flying, is always, the front of the plane is always slightly angled up above the back. It has to be that way.
Yep.
And when you're coming into land, that's why they want you in your seats, because the plane is coming in with a +10 to +12 degree above horizontal pitch, because they have to do that when they're coming into land to hold positive 100% positive lift. Okay.
Yeah, because if you cannot have, because that's what it said, level flight is usually 2 to 3 degrees upward lift, because they need the air to be pressing up to keep it at level flight, because it's got drag, and that's why they fly that way. If they're not tilted up, they're not going to have the specified drag to stay level, and they would be dropping. And because they always fly at level, it shows they're not dropping around the curve. It's actually very simple stuff.
A lot of the reason, sorry.
No, and that's no. And I think this is the crux of the presentation, Flatsoid.
Okay.
That's fine. You can adjust. All you've got to maybe I should start, and I'll address that point first off, because like I said early on, there's the Eric Debay idea that this accumulation of curvature can disprove the globe, and in straight level flight it does, and that's important to remember that. So my debunk here is how you would mitigate for that, and all you've got to literally do is deal with 8 inches every mile you fly, and as long as you adjust for that altitude change, you're fine. If you stack it up for 50 miles, 100 miles, you've still got to deal with it, and you're probably better off in an airplane doing that.
Mm-hmm.
Drop by a couple of 5-10 mile an hour, your upward thrust will massively decrease. Okay, you're in a balance, you're in an equilibrium to achieve straight and level flight with your forward thrust and your angle. So it's easy in the mind of a baller to mitigate for that argument, and that's kind of the other place where this is born. So what are the other consequences? So fundamentally, how does a plane behave in level flight? And as we've been through, straight flight is achieved with an angle. And excuse this little plane. The research I did was on commercial flights, because that's what I was going to go on. So when I was researching the information, it's taken from a standard holiday flight plane, because that's what's going on. Your standard Ryanair bit of kit. So in that, as we've kind of gone over, which is kind of handy because it saves filling in, the nose never angles down during flight. Altitude is lost by reducing this angle or reducing speed, decreasing upward thrust. Basically, a slight tilt back is usual in all straight flight. So, i.e., the orientation of the plane, and this is kind of what I want to show. And with all planes, however accentuated it is, this statement is true. The angle of the nose is pointing. The angle the nose is pointing is not the direction of travel. And you can see the angle there in the blue line. But this is this yellow line is the straight line vector that we're talking about. That's how the planes actually flies in the air, maintaining its altitude. So, as I said, what I bothered to do was film this because I wanted to plot the vectors, and I filmed it so that I could, if we were having adjustments, kind of do it over time, plot the whole journey out, and if for whatever magical reason there was curvature, I'd be able to express it mathematically based on these vectors. You can see here, look. So we've got, it kind of sits there all the way. There's a little bit of pitching and yawing and stuff, but that's kind of what happened. But that's because my son's mobile I nicked whilst I filmed it with mine. So the next, I suppose just to share the information. So I measured for the middle hour of a 2-hour flight. There's no point getting involved in the ascent and descent. As it says there, readings vary between 1 and 4 degrees during the monitoring times. But, and this is the important point, but never level or down.
Never level or down, exactly.
Okay. Now, if we assume a speed of around 850 kilometers an hour, so the distance covered during that is around about 850, but let's call it 800. So that's kind of the survey size. And as I said, this is how, as we were saying earlier, just a refresh, this is the angle of attack of the plane, i.e. the orientation of the plane itself, and this is actually the flight path that it's taking. I don't think we've established that, so I won't just do that. So the next question I want to ask then, because we've negated that maybe altitude can be excused in the mind of a baller. So the question I want to ask is, how does the ground change on a flat plane and a ball? Orientation of down, direction of gravity remain the same traveling across a flat plane. If the Earth is curved, then that same concept down, direction of gravity, will vary at a rate of 0.009 degrees. It's decimalized, it's not, but it's not a problem, per kilometer with regards to straight line distance. Straight line distance being, on a ball, a great circle route of some description. So that's what we're looking at. So I just want to visualize this with some high quality graphics. That was my plane. You've seen its angle, you've seen the vector, that straight line vector it's traveled, and that's the straight line vector it's traveled. We're happy with that. This is all happening in the sky. The ground is irrelevant, but the orientation of perpendicular to the plane has not changed. And if we think about where down is in all of these situations, the positions of the plane, at no point has down changed in terms of its relative orientation to the plane. Moreover, the commensurate lines I've just drawn here to represent where down was across the journey are parallel to each other.
Yeah, that alone actually goes totally against what they claim with the globe. So if you just take this alone, yeah, it shows a horizontal.
Yeah, so down. Let's try it with the globe. So we're going to make that same journey, that same distance. And down where the plane started is at this point. So if we get to the halfway, a quarter way point, well, actually, as the plane's travelled, if down is defined as an equidistant point to the centre of a presupposed sphere, as I've moved, then that down, as I said earlier, changes by 0.009 degrees per kilometre. So the further I travel, the further that degree change is accentuated. To the point that it's maybe not easy to tell from the first two gravity lines, or orientation of down gravity lines in this case.
So would
They're
those
not
be
parallel, but you can see by between 0.1 and 0.4, we don't have parallel lines. I know I've exaggerated slightly. Go on.
would those then be new zeniths at every?
There'd be diverging zeniths, wouldn't there?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's not what we see though.
More importantly, it's not what's experienced, and this is kind of what I'd like to just summarize with. You know, this has an impact, and I'm going to keep it simple in terms of the passengers. Brian will go into aerodynamics. I just want to reiterate, I took the accelerometer on board, and that demonstrated it. Now, that was just me monitoring it, but remember what the pilot's doing. We said at the start, yeah, he's spent a few minutes on the ground getting his gyroscope calibrated to obtain a level, so that stays level. Yeah, so he's not tipping his nose down it. That's there. I'm monitoring as well, and I've got that additional proof. But so we can see that, you know, a directional change would be required in terms of if we're maintaining the straight flight, which I don't think is in denial even from a baller. That's what the gyroscope does. That's what the accelerometer from the passenger's point of view demonstrated. This plane maintains straight and level flight, a straight line vector. Now that's not on a flat Earth. That's a parallel line with the ground, whatever altitude they're at. But as we've demonstrated here, this has repercussions for the ball. So there we go. After 1,000 kilometers, and mine was what? My hour-long flight was 850. The angle of gravity change would have to have changed to 9 degrees incline. So instead of me sitting there, the ball's falling away. So I'm going to have a 9-degree change because I'm staying on that straight line factor. So what would it feel like to the passengers? I mean, this is theoretical, and this is the beauty of Brian coming in, because when I first did this, I'm trying to convolute in my silly little mind how you could describe it, but and this is where I'll leave that bit, because this is the reality. It's not how the passengers would feel. They couldn't feel like this. The plane would fall out of the air. And I'll leave that point there until I finish, so Brian can finish that. But just in conclusion, I would just... You'll notice I've not claimed experiment, but I still like to record things in a empirical manner. So summary, the results. During the 1 hour of monitored flight, only a constant incline of orientation between 1 and 4 degrees was observed. No resultant change in orientation with respect to gravitational pull was experienced or measured. We didn't reorient ourselves to the surface, which would have been necessary, either intermittently or constantly. Conclusion: the observations and measurements were found no evidence the curvature would be experienced or measured by travelling across a ball of circumference 40,000 kilometers. Results and measurements would indicate travel occurred with down gravity parallel with each other and perpendicular to the line of straight travel across the flat plane.
Yeah, that's excellent, Adam. Because, like, if you go back to if you just go back to where you showed what happens with the planes, especially if they're trying to hold it above horizontal pitch. If we could go back to that diagram a second.
Which was that early on, or the
before this?
Ones?
Before this, it was 1 or 2 before this. Before the summary. It shows. I'll wait till you go back to it.
Just bear with me 1 second.
Okay.
I'm having a slight tissue there. Let me just end the show. I'll leave the screen there. And then I should be able to just start it again. Up there.
While you're doing that, I just want to say hey to everybody that's just joined in on the chat again. Tonight is a bit different because we didn't get OBS to work, so that's why we're doing through StreamYard. So tonight was supposed to be a members only chat, so we'll be moving it over to tomorrow night members only if I get OBS working again. Anyway, yeah, tonight we got Adam Meaken and Brian's Logic with an awesome presentation so far on flight. So I hope that people are paying attention, and just want to say thank you to everybody that's here supporting the channel. Please just don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe if you haven't already to keep up to date. Yeah, thanks, Mike.
Yep. If you go to the one where you showed a kind of a cartoon globe with a kind of a city face on it, if you remember that one, Adam.
Yeah, that was with all the arrows pointing in towards the globe.
Yeah, because that's the main thing. You see, the they can't do any of what they're saying. If you go on again to where they shows of that one, yeah. See, what's wrong here, and this always, I had this out with some people on the opposite side, is that you would never be able to fly with your nose above horizontal at any point. Once you get to cruising altitude, once you get to that point, you can only hold horizontal for a moment. And from that point on, for every second after that, you have an accumulated, you have to have, your pitch has to be accumulated below horizontal pitch, second to second. So you can never fly with the nose above horizontal. But if you were to try to do that, I mean, it would be impossible, because as Adam is shown here with the diagrams here, is that what ends up happening is the nose of the aircraft on a globe would end up pointing off out into space, while the tail of the aircraft would end up pointing towards, if you flew from the North Pole to the equator, the tail of the aircraft would be pointing towards the equator, and the nose would be pointing directly up horizontally, or sorry, vertically, directly up into space, straight up into the air. It would never work. It's impossible. But it doesn't matter, because, go on, side.
No, I just said that is the difference. Like I said, you can account for accumulated altitude, because as you can see the plane, you know what I mean? But this is the point, is that orientation that is not changed by the plane and validated by the gyroscope and the accelerometer that shows the plane's orientation is not changing. And yeah, this is the aerodynamic bit that like I say, Brian's really looked into, so I'll shut up. But yeah, that is the crux of it to me. It's the accumulation of the curvature that you acquire, and it's consequent that it reorientates, as I said, by 0.009 degrees per kilometer. But just in that 1 hour flight that I was on, there's 9 degrees. Apply that, what we said, between 1 and 3 degrees for straight level flight, and I'll let Brian explain how it destroys aerodynamic.
Yeah, and I mean, I think we would pick up 9 degrees of difference. It's quite a lot.
Well, you can't have 9 degrees of difference, regardless of, even if you start off with a 3 degree above horizontal pitch. That means you have to have, when you get into your destination, your pitch has to be, if it's 9 degrees, even if you start with above 3 degree, above horizontal 3 degree pitch, your ending position has to be 6 degrees below horizontal. There is no way around that. And if you need 9 degrees below horizontal, 6 degrees is not enough. What you actually need, because you can't have a 9 degree change from horizontal and fly with your nose above horizontal. You can't do that. You have to follow the degree change. That's the only way for it to work, because you have to understand the bottom of that aircraft has to point directly into the center of the globe. That's the only way it would be able to do it. So you could never fly with the nose above horizontal. You would have to follow what they call a level, which would just be like a circular parallel circle with the globe. You would have to follow that circle around. So on Adams here, if you look at the points of all the arrows, you would have to follow let's say the roof of the airplane would have to be touching the points of all those arrows as it flies around. It could never fly, as Adam has shown here, with its nose slightly up above horizontal. The reason they fly with the nose slightly up above horizontal, because it's impossible to fly without it, because that's what you have to have to hold positive lift, 100, because you need 100% positive lift. So I'll give everyone an example of what they can do, and everyone's done this in their life at some point. But don't do this on a busy road. If you're driving, put your hand out the window, make sure there's no other cars around, make sure it's a quiet time, and keep your hand completely level, right, completely horizontal, your palm, right, from the front to the back of the car, keep it horizontal. Then slightly tip up the thumb side, which is the front, slightly tip up your thumb side of your hand. What you notice is your hand will lift straight up in the air because you're being brought, the thrust will be the car bringing you forward. And when you slightly tip up your thumb, that is the lift effect. You know, when it goes up, bring it back down, bring it back horizontal again and level, and then slightly tip the thumb down. What will happen is your hand and arm will be forced down. So the whole point of having the chord line of the wings and the nose above horizontal, the nose is up because the chord line is up, because that's the way they fly. But thrust also, this is also due to thrust, right? So as the air hits the wing, it hits the bottom edge, the bottom quarter edge of the wing, and that pushes the wing up the way, which brings the rest of the aircraft in the same direction. But the aircraft is flying forward. So if you can imagine the aircraft constantly hitting something with push, that's like, let's say, a pole, just for easy description, a pole pushing up on the front edge, on the front underneath edge of the wing, pushing that wing up, but the plane is going forward. So that's why it's always flying with its nose slightly above horizontal. That's why it has to do that, because that is taking advantage of the lift effect. So the lift effect is always trying to push, the lift effect is always trying to push the airplane off at an angle, but the thrust is bringing it forward. So the lift is trying to push it up, back the way at an angle. Let's say the lift is trying to bring it back at a 45-degree angle, or something like that. But the thrust is bringing the plane forward. So it's a constant fight between the air that's hitting the bottom quarter, at the bottom quarter of the wing, and the thrust. So that they must always keep that balance correct, and that's why they have to fly with the nose and the chord line of the wings above horizontal. That's how the lift effect works, which means that what Adam is showing here with the plane with its nose, I know it's a little cartoon plane, but it shows the same thing. With the nose obviously slightly above horizontal, that's the only way for a plane to fly. And especially a commercial airliner that flies long-haul flights across the world, right, it will be flying constantly in the one position for hours on end.
Just
And
maybe
it
to
has to
explain the diagram, right? I know it's a cartoon, but it does have significance. This is a plane this is flying trans-Europe, trans-American, sort of equivalent. Look, you've not got 90 degrees. You're looking about completely 6 degrees of ball travel. Look at the direction of down. So it's starting at the North Pole on top of the little globe's head. Okay, look at where direction of down is. Look at where down now is at the end of that journey, that 60 degrees of travel. Look at it. It's impossible for the plane not to have to compensate for it. That we can see through the gyroscope, because this would throw out the artificial horizon for the pilot. And we saw through the accelerometer data, or you can see if you wish, that there is no pitch change. There's certainly nothing. And this was the important point about the 1 to 3 degrees that maintains level of flight. That's lovely. Speeding up or increasing it drops and affects your altitude. But the only way to compensate for this effect of traveling over a spherical surface is to reorientate the actual plane, which means you have to descend below zero. You have to go into, as they said, descent. It's never demonstrated. Yet look at the effects, not of just the altitude, but of the accumulated curvature and its implication to down.
Yeah, so you're saying, if you take from point A to point B, the accumulation of the data shows it does not change at all. So therefore, it's just showing parallel to keep to a horizontal plane.
My flight down parallel arrows
Mhm.
down to the surface because the surface was flat. But the implication to this is that
Very simple
the lines
stuff.
cannot be parallel even after 1 kilometer. There's 0.009 degrees variance in them not being parallel. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, this would be very simple. But also, what happens? Let's take say the globe is supposed to be rotating, and you are going up with altitude. You're getting further away from the center, so your tangential speed has to increase as well. Correct?
Yeah, the high.
So, so then you'll have varying times that it would take to get to a location as well.
Are you talking about when they are at an altitude, they're making a bigger circumference?
Yeah.
Well, that doesn't account for much because you're only adding on about 30, an average flight about 6 miles up. I think it's like 30 or 40 miles to the whole journey. So they're not adding a whole lot to it.
Yeah,
So they can
okay.
kind of,
It's only your altitude times 3.14, isn't it?
yeah,
It doesn't.
it's
It
not a
doesn't
whole
add a
lot.
great. You think it does, but it doesn't. When you do the maths.
Yeah, because 6 miles is nothing off of the surface, isn't it, if you see it that way.
Yeah.
The,
Yeah, no,
the issue is though that that has to be accounted for though, because like if you think about something that's hovering, something that supposedly hovers, where does it get the magic energy to acquire that extra supposed tangential speed? That's where the issues come in. Not as what we were saying with Alwyn earlier today. It's not the amount necessarily that's important of it. It's the fact that there is an amount that's important. That's to do with rotation. There would be an amount irrespective, So, but this is about down to me. It's about just showing the ludicrousness of what's going to happen. As I said, after the first kilometer, you got 0.009 degrees. Now let's have 10 kilometers, which is not much for a jet fighter flying in a straight line. Brian, if I was to say to you that jet fighters now got 0.9 of a degree variance to deal with, how do you deal with it? And what effects would that 0.9 have on it? And how is the only way, if you're flying over a ball, how could the jet fighter deal with that accumulated angle change? I'm done.
Well, if we take a jet fighter into account, you see, what I'm going to show now in a couple of minutes is that if we take a jet fighter into account, we're talking at a much faster flying thing than a commercial airliner. So even if it was only a small amount of change, no, it's not. It's a very large amount of change. In reality, it would be in reality, working with the globe maths. But even if it was only a small amount of change, when you're flying faster, it's much, much more difficult to account for that. Because jet fighters fly, if you think about a jet fighter, I think the MiG-25 Foxbat for a long time was the fastest jet fighter in the world. It could fly 80.03 or 80.3 miles a minute. So it can cover 80.3 miles in a minute, which would cover, I think it's 80.3 miles in a minute. It covers like something like 200 and something miles or 200 miles in 5 minutes, or 200 and something miles in 5 minutes. It's 40.3 miles, I think it is in a minute. Either way, in a minute. I think I've me maths a bit mixed up, but anyway, it was extremely fast. Whereas, yeah, because that's right. Because a commercial airliner would be covering about 9 to 10 miles a minute, right? Whereas the MiG-25 Foxbat was covering over 40 miles a minute. So that's a massive change. So if you're a pilot, regardless of how good you are, if you're a pilot and you have to make these changes, especially especially when you're moving extremely fast. You won't be able to do it. It's not possible for jet fighters or aircraft in general to exist, and for them for pilots to have to deal with, or the airplane in any way have to deal with, just the curvature. Never mind the rotation, which I'll get to in a while, but just the curvature is impossible to deal with.
Yep.
So if I can share my screen and I'm going to show something, then we'll do a small little bit of maths on something that's moving faster. So I'm just going to share it there. Share screen. Let's see. I think I just have to share my whole. Maybe I can just do a window. All right, that'll do for the minute. Right now, can you see this?
No. Yeah. Let me just click on yours. Add to stream. There we go. It's
okay. Okay. Thank you. So this is just a basic. This is a London Heathrow to Los Angeles International. I've been on the flight myself several times. So the flight time of this is 11 hours. So from London to LAX is 11 hours. The average airspeed is 550 miles per hour. So a globe with a circumference of 24,856 statute miles divided by 360 will give you 69.04 statute miles per degree. So every degree of change, you will cover 69.04 statute miles. 550 miles per hour divided by 69.04 statute miles will give you 7.966 degrees. So that is every hour you will have 7.966 degrees of below horizontal pitch to account for if you are flying over a globe. So if we multiply the 7.966 degrees by 11 hours, we will have 87.6 degrees. So this means that that a pilot flying a plane from London, UK to Los Angeles, California at 550 miles per hour for 11 hours would have to account for 87.63 degrees below horizontal pitch change if we lived on a globe Earth. Do pilots do this? So just before we go into the end part, this is like very, very simple. Anyone can present this to any commercial pilot, right? I don't care if it's Wolfie or anyone else, and they will not be able to support this or anything even remotely like it, because they can't support it because they know that it doesn't happen. So for an 11-hour flight from London, UK to Los Angeles, California, they're going to have to, once the plane gets to cruising altitude, it's going to have to, from that point, the pilot is going to have an accumulated second per second pitch below horizontal to deal with, to account for. And it's going to end up with close to 90 degrees of a difference from starting point to end point. So that's what they would have to do if we lived on a globe with a radius of 3.59 miles. That's what they would have to have. So do they do this? No. Commercial pilots fly aircraft at cruising altitude and cruising speed with a 3 to 5 degree above horizontal pitch at all times, debunking any and all claims of pilots correcting for supposed Earth curvature. Earth is definitively not a globe. It can't be a globe, because if it was, then every flight from London to Los Angeles would have to account, the pilots would have to account for, if they're flying at 550 miles per hour, they would have to account for an 87.63 degree below horizontal pitch change. Accumulated a 7.966 degree pitch change below horizontal, which means they can never fly from the point of cruising altitude. They could never fly with the nose above horizontal. From that point, for a second, they can be horizontal, and after that, they must begin a below horizontal pitch. That's the way it has to be. There is no way out of that. The maths, their own globe maths, dictate that's what it has to be. There's no way around it. So let's just say we make the speed faster. Let's just say we make the speed, let's say we make it 2,000 miles an hour, right? So if we divide, right, 2,000, right, divided by 69.04, right, equals 28.96. So if you were flying at 2,000 miles per hour, you would, for every hour, you have to count for 28.96 miles below horizontal pitch if you were flying over a globe. That's every hour. So let's just say we divide this by 60. Divided by 60, right, equals, that's 0.48 of a if you were flying a jet fighter at 2,000 miles per hour, airspeed, then you would have to account for almost 0.5 of a degree for every minute. You would have no way out of it. So let's just say if you were to fly the MiG-25 Foxbat flies now, it flies. I think it flies over 2,000 miles per hour. But we'll just say whatever jet fighter it is. A lot of them can only hold top speed for, let's say, 5 to 7 minutes, that kind of thing. So we multiply this by 5, we have 2.4. So that would mean that the person flying the fighter jet would have to end up from its starting cruising altitude point, and once it hits top speed, let's just say it would have to account for end up 2.4 degrees below horizontal 5 minutes after the pilot start. So you know what I mean. Let's just multiply. So let's just say they can fly for 2,000 miles an hour for 20 minutes, right? We multiply that by 4, be 9.6. So almost 10 degrees below horizontal after 20 minutes. Like nobody does this. It doesn't happen. But these are the things that are like has to happen if we lived on a globe. Sorry, John. That's it.
If it was really like that and they were following the rules that's today, then they would be crashing in the ground.
Yes.
Literally.
I actually made a couple of videos about that where I used the MiG-25 Foxbat, and I used the NASA X-15, and I showed how with the speeds they would go at top speed, the amount of accumulated below horizontal pitch would cause them to, even on a globe, to smash straight into the ground, because they wouldn't be able to account for it in the correct manner. I can't remember how I worked out the videos, but I remember showing how it was kind of difficult. People find it hard to grasp it. They had to watch it maybe once or twice, but basically it meant that the rate of pitch change below horizontal that they would have to make at the rates they were flying at would mean they'd end up crashing directly into the ground.
That's that. I'm not digging out Eric Debay, okay, but back in 2015, yeah, one of the things that made me look into this is watching like US jet fighters fly like literally over the surface of water, and you're thinking, how can they do that? And the argument put to me, yeah, you've only got to deal with 8 inches every mile. You'd stack those numbers up there, even if they're flying really, really fast. For every second they fly, the ground gets a bit lower. It's actually quite safe on the ball. That's not the issue, and that's the thing that niggled in my mind. Yeah, it's exactly this pitch change. How the hell does that jet fighter ever turn nose down? Ever? It did to reorientate itself to be equidistant from the center of a proposed ball to define down. Yeah. Then it would just absolutely obliterate itself and blow up, wouldn't it? And as it hit the water, it can't nose down. That's the beauty of those images with this argument and not altitude.
Yeah, exactly. It's just not possible. It's not possible for them to do what is claimed they do, because the speeds that, especially jet fighters, the speeds they fly at, to have to correct for that nonsense, a globe nonsense, it would make it impossible. You wouldn't be able to do it. And I worked out with those videos before that the speed that the MiG-25 Foxbat flew at, and then the X-15, they flew so fast that they ended up careering straight into the ground because the pilot was trying to correct. I can't remember how it worked out, but I remember that they wouldn't be able to correct it properly to stop that from happening. It would be impossible. Do you know what I mean? The amount of correction they'd have to do, the speed they're moving at, I based it on the heights that they fly at. So if you were moving at, let's just say you're moving at 2,000 miles per hour, but you're flying at, let's say, 7 miles up in the sky, then 2,000 miles per hour, let's just say, if I just do it here, let's just say, so 2,000 miles in an hour divided by 60 equals, right, 33 miles per minute. 33 miles per minute. So that would be, so if you're flying and you're 7 miles up in the sky and you're flying at 2,000 miles per hour. Now the MiG-25 Foxtrot flew faster than that, I think. But if you're flying at 7 miles up in the sky at 2,000 miles per hour, then you're covering 33.33 miles a minute. So if you're only 7 miles up and you have to pitch down, then you're covering such a distance within a minute that you pitching down, the amount you have to pitch down will cause you to end up careering into the ground because of the rate you're moving at.
Mm-hmm.
Because you have to move at that rate, at that speed, and you're only 7 miles up, that you would end up careering into the ground and not being able to stop it from happening because you wouldn't be able to control the plane because of the rate you're moving at and the pitch change you need to account for. And the X-15 was worse again because that was like 6,000 miles per hour or something like that. The X-15 was claimed to have flown at, and it only flew at 25 miles up. So if I was to do the same with, let's just say I go 6,000 divided by 60 is 100, right? That's 100 miles a minute, let's just say. If you're only 25 miles up and you're trying to account for let's just say every minute, what would be the, so 1 second now. So if we do 6 divided by 60.04 equals, yeah, right, so, and divide that by 60 equals, yeah, so you'd have to account for 1.44 degrees below horizontal pitch every minute, but you're flying at 100 miles per minute. So if you're trying to pitch down and fly at 100 miles per minute, do you know what I mean? You're going to have problems. It's going to be absolutely deadly. There is no way you'd ever successfully fly that.
Mm-hmm.
You wouldn't be able to hold the correct pitch. Any differential in your pitch by accident or anything, you'd end up dying. So just doesn't work. Can't work.
No, it wouldn't work at all.
No.
But like I said, at the end of the day, no matter where they turn to for their globe, it's showing to go against what they are claiming, because there's some. If they're making a claim, it's got to literally show to. It's literally got to. Let's say if they make a claim on something of the globe, there's things that have to follow, and if it doesn't follow that, then it's not going to. How can I put it? Then it's not going to work, because if you're saying you go have a curve and this is the reason, then you have things that follow that reasoning, and if we show against it, then that means that reasoning is false.
Yeah, their own globe maths dictate that it's not possible.
Mm-hmm.
Their own globe maths dictate that it's not possible for them to do what they do because because the airplane could never fly with above horizontal.
That the pilot uses, okay, and unless you're going to invoke gravity on gyroscopes that sit in free space now, that seems nonsensical. Even NASA have demonstrated them on the supposed ISS working in free space. So you've got to trust that. You've got to trust and then look at what's being claimed. Now, my first bit is just going through the basic accumulation of orientation of down. But hopefully, with Brian's bit, you understand this is impossible from an aerodynamics viewpoint. So even if you look at all NASA stuff, what do they state? All of the mathematics for the upward thrust and everything, it's on a stationary level plane. Yeah?
Yep.
Because that's how it's calculated, and that's the reality they got the calculations from.
Yeah.
Hopefully, what we've showed tonight is the implausibility of applying that to traversing across a ball. Whilst you may get away with altitude, what you can't do is get away with your supposed curving atmosphere even if we maintain ourselves at the same supposed varying altitude in your curving atmosphere, you can't get away from the fact that your orientation of down is changing, and depending on the mode of transport, at a faster rate in some than others, they become impossible, absolutely impossible for these devices to work as stated. And hopefully, as I've shown, if not that, then you would be gaining altitude all the time, and have to take a nosedive every so often to reorientate yourself. And that's the purpose of this. When you're traversing a ball, you are constantly reorientating yourself. But if you're in a plane that's defined by a gyroscope, traveling in a straight line vector, then that orientation of down is changing around you whilst you traverse in that straight line vector. And that's the implications, unfortunately, of claiming you live on a ball.
Yeah, exactly. So I just have to give a super thank you, Alan Nostrand, for your $5 super chat. Really appreciate it. Thank you very much. This is why they call it airplane and not air sphere. Yep, exactly. It's because they fly over a horizontal stationary plane. Thank you very much for the super chat. Really do appreciate it. I think it's quite straightforward, guys.
It is, and I mean, there is more proof than just these. I'm not going to go into them now, but I'll keep it simple. There's more proofs than just what we're showing here. But we're showing here now tonight is the effects that a curvature would have to have on how the airplane flies, and now into rotation. Just for the audience, Wolfie, who we all know, is a commercial pilot, and he has outright blank refused, right, to get the official pitch data from 10 long-haul international flights. Now, he could get this if he wanted. It's only pitch data. I find it very difficult to get. I can't get it so far, which is very strange that I can't get something as simple as pitch data. I mean, what is the problem? It's just pitch data. Can't get it. The airlines don't want to give it to you. Now, Wolfie would get it, but he outright refuses to get it. And why does he outright refuse to get it? Sorry, flat type.
So yeah, and me and you, we both have asked him for this pitch data for how much years now, and it's just he's just not giving it, making excuses.
That's what the accelerometer data was there to replicate. I looked, it's not there. You can't get it. It's weird. You can track these things all across the globe in representation, yeah, but you can't get that pitch data, which is what I found intriguing, which is why I thought I'll take my own then. It showed there is no pitch data. The plane, when it reaches the altitude that it's allotted, it flies in straight and level flight with a vector created different to its nose orientation.
Well, what I would like to point out to anyone who might be thinking this, that they might say, why don't you just go on a flight and do a GoFundMe, get money for a flight, get the flight, have a good iPhone 14 or something there, do all the thing, record all the stuff with the best apps you can get, the best engineering apps to make sure you have the best clinometers and everything, recording the whole lot on the flight. That doesn't mean anything, because that will only be something that I can show to someone personally. That is not official flight data. Because what Adam showed, right, is exactly what the official flight data would show, pitch data, official pitch data would show. But because it's, and I don't mean this in any bad way, Adam knows this, but because it's only Adam, he can't present it officially, let's just say, to mainstream media or anyone else. If I had official pitch data, or any of us could get official pitch data from Qantas, British Airways, whoever, right, that would change the game, because that's official pitch data of what planes do and don't do, right? And then there would be no argument that anyone could make. But anyone can dismiss what Adams shows, or what I show or say, or what you show or say, Flatside, because we are just people who aren't in charge of an aerospace company. We are not officially recognized, so there's nothing we can do. So anyone that might be thinking, why don't you just get your own pitch data? That doesn't solve the problem, because Adam's pitch data there is from 4 years ago. and he's still not after being called onto mainstream news to present it. But that's been
No.
out there for 4 years.
Yeah, and they won't because they simply don't want it to get out there.
No.
What I
Why
found
would-
interesting, Bri, yeah, I totally agree on those points. I have presented this to 2 pilots. One was when I was traveling again after I'd done the presentation, traveling again to Italy, and on a Ryanair flight, they're 3 wide, and we're a family of 4, so I always go for extra leg room. So the first time I'm sat there, there's a row of 3, and there's me and a pilot that's flying to Rome, to pick up his next connection. He's not needed on this flight, but he's needed over there. So after about 20 minutes, half an hour, I pluck up the courage and I pull out my phone and I pull out the PowerPoint slide and go through it all with him. I didn't know his name. I won't guess it. So I asked him, what do you think? First, at the halfway through point where I'm describing how planes work, he said, yeah, lovely. Then I went through the other stuff and he was Italian and I went, it can make me think. Yeah. And he was completely did not have a rebuttal. Okay. And then the second time was a flight to Dublin. I'm flying over there and I'm on my own at this point and I'm waiting in the lounge for ages and there's a load of like flight geeks, people that have only been on simulators and love aeroplanes. So there's like 7 or 8 of them. I'm at East Midlands and there's a guy with them who's standing up while they're all sitting and chatting and talking, and I'm bored and I'm in a bad mood for the reason I'm going to Ireland for. So I think, right. So I go over to them. I say, "Can I show you this, guys?" Go through it with them. The geeks rage, giving me but then the actual pilot, the guy that's going to take him up and let him see the cockpit for a bit and explain stuff, says, no, actually, he has a point. And I left it there. And I said, I'll leave it there because I don't have an answer. Because I'm not. There's no point like trying to go, ha ha. See, it's a flat earth. Because if you leave on that moment, you weaken your argument. So all I said was, I don't have an answer. I was hoping you'd be able to help me, mate.
That's what it's saying. That's when you try and lead them into the argument so they can try and, because I've realized if you try and lead them into an argument that way, then it gives them more of a foothold to see, okay, I'm actually clicking what the argument is. And you can see the cogs turning in their head because they have to try and figure it out for themselves. And that's when okay, yes, something's wrong. And a lot of the time, if they're just normal people, they end up walking away and then they go and think about it. This is the difference between anti-flat earthers. They've passed that threshold already. They're literally just like, it goes against my religion, so therefore I have to ignore it straight. That's when you can see the difference between anti-flat earther and a normal globe believer.
Yeah, this is the thing about it one for me. This is why Brian loves it so much. This is his favouriteest thing. See, I still love gas pressure, but flight's your favourite, isn't it, Brian? To be fair, I think
it is, because I can even bring even gas pressure argument into the flight through the what happens in the cabin. They pressurize the cabin at about 11 to 12 psi. Now we live on average in 14.7 psi at around sea level, but they pressurize the cabin where the passengers are to around 11 to 12 psi. I think the cockpits may be pressurized to 14.7, or they might be slightly higher pressure in the cockpit. Don't quote me on that, but I know that the cabin is 11 to 12 psi. The reason they don't pressurize where the passengers are to 14.7 psi is because when they go up high and the outside pressure will have dropped so much that if they have 14.7 inside, then it will cause structural damage to the plane. So, but they also can't have the pressure inside, let's say 7 or 8 psi, because then the passengers are going to start going unconscious and having problems, getting sick, whatever, because it's totally not natural. You'll have basically, it'd be like having altitude sickness or something like that. So what they end up having to do is kind of meet a halfway mark where where the passengers are 11 to 12 psi, where the passengers are, and that's where you get jet lag. That's where you get air sickness. It's from that pressure that you're not used to being in. So most people aren't used to being in 11 to 12 psi, and so consequently, because they don't live up mountains, consequently when they're on a flight, then they end up having to deal with this pressure change. But if they pressurized it to 14.7 psi, then the differential in pressure from the outside of the plane when they're 6 miles up and the inside of the plane will cause will cause structural damage to the plane. And why is that? Because the 14.7 pressure wants to equalize too much with the outside, whatever it is, pressure outside. It might be only 5 psi or maybe 2. I don't know what it is at 6 miles up, but it's going to be a lot lower than 14.7. So consequently, due to this differential, they can't pressurize it any more than 11 or 12 psi. But that leads you to, now, although I don't ever make the arguments about space or anything else like that, I don't care about them, but that leads you to things like the ISS. How could they pressurize that to 11 or 12 psi for the people to possibly be in at 250 miles above the Earth when they can't pressurize when they can't fly any higher than 6 or 7 miles up with an 11 to 12 psi internally in the cabin with the passengers, because if they go up any higher, they have to bring in the psi lower. So what people will find is that when they're flying on flights that aren't at, let's say, 6 or 7 miles up, or like kind of 4 or 5 miles up, that they won't feel so bad because the pressure they can allow in the cabin into the passengers will be higher. But when they go up to 6 or 7 miles up, they'll have to bring down that pressure. So if you go up to 14 miles up, what will the pressure be? How much pressure can you allow at 14 miles up? And this is why part of the reason why military pilots often have oxygen masks on them, because the pressure differential is going to be so much, it's going to affect them. There's a lack of air up there, and the pressure differential, as well as if you look at where they are, they're in a cockpit that's going to be stronger built. Like it's in a smaller area, it's going to be stronger built, but they still have to deal with that. Where when they're up really high in the sky, now they don't fly at 14 miles up, but I'm just saying, when they're up high in the sky in a fighter jet, higher than a normal commercial airliner, that they have to deal with that and train to deal with that. So how could someone be 250 miles above the Earth? Let's just say if it was possible to, I know it's not possible to be up there, but how could you be in the ISS? It would make it impossible to be alive, because the pressure internally would have to be so low in comparison to the outside pressure. It would kill everyone. You wouldn't be able to live. You'd be in like plus 0.5 or something stupid like that psi, if it was even that, just to hold the structural integrity of the ISS. So the ISS, its structural integrity would come apart if you tried to put 10 or 11 psi inside of it, at where it is in the sky, within their heliocentric sky. It debunks the notion of that. Nobody could live, no matter what they do. That differential is going to cause a problem, no matter what they do. And they can't have these things made of lead and whatever else, super strong, heavy steel, because within their narrative, because they can't get them up into their heliocentric space. So it debunks anyone being on that thing simply because they would be dead. It would be impossible to live. You wouldn't be able to train for it either. You can't do it, and all the training in the world will not allow you to live in the PSI you would have to live in within the ISS. It would be impossible. Now, I don't care about that argument, the ISS and all that, because the second law of thermodynamics makes all that impossible. But within their own rhetoric, those people couldn't live. They would be dead due to that PSI differential.
Yeah. Can you see this time lapse, guys? This is exactly what Adam's saying. It's flying level all along that, and there's no deviation on dropping or anything. It's literally just staying the same altitude. Do you see that?
Yeah, yeah. I've a few of these videos saved myself. They're excellent because they just show from start to finish, a time lapse.
It's amazing.
I did a little on What is the World channel. The insight I condensed down, which was an 8.5-hour flight of exactly that, just wing footage, to demonstrate it does. There is no adjustment. There's no recalibration for the reorientation of down that would be necessary if you're traversing a sphere.
Exactly. And there's literally nothing.
Will we pull apart the rotation claim now? Because this will be an extra added on because, I mean, we've already shown it's impossible to account for the curvature if you were to fly as in a plane as planes fly. That is not possible.
No, definitely not possible.
If you share my screen in a minute, or you're showing this first.
No, we can show your screen, good. You're going to debunk the...
Yeah. See, in this video I made, this is 2 videos back from my second last video. In this video, there's no Coriolis effect. I didn't speak about Coriolis or anything else. Nothing to do with any of that. But that's an apparent deviation that has nothing to do with air travel, nothing to do with pilots or anything else. So anyone saying they're counting for Coriolis when they're flying, they're talking complete and utter rubbish. They don't know what they're talking about. I just purely dealt with a pure north to south flight from London Heathrow to Accra, Ghana. So directly, I think there's only 1 degree of longitudinal difference or something like that, or 1.2 or 0.5 degrees. There's only a small difference between where London is longitudinally and where Ghana is, or Accra, Ghana is. Now that flight it goes from up here where the intersection is with the 3 lines, down to Ghana there. That's the first red line there towards the edge of the globe. The second red line was just an example of if they had a small deviation to deal with, that deviation would cause this line to be even longer than that red line. Because for the plane to leave London and to reach Accra, Ghana, even if the Earth was rotating and it rotated slower than it's claimed, than the globe is claimed to rotate, then you still would have a deviation between London and Accra, Ghana that would cause the flight to be longer. Now, if you look at the third line, which is the orange line, where I have the orange line ending, that is actually at the same latitude as Accra, Ghana. And all these lines are at the same latitude. The difference is that the distance that the plane has to fly to reach those destinations. Now, the flight from London to Accra, Ghana is 6.5 hours, right? So, if Accra, Ghana is where it is when the plane leaves London, where it's going to be on a globe 6.5 hours later is at the very end of that orange line. So it's going to have rotated from west to east over to this point. So that means that the airplane, the pilot can't fly a direct south flight, because if the pilot flies a direct south flight, it's going to completely miss Accra, Ghana if Earth is rotating. If we're on a rotating globe, that's what's going to happen. Or even on a rotating flat plane, it's going to happen. So consequently, if the Earth is rotating, the pilot is going to have to fly east, out over Germany and France and places like that, parts of Eastern Europe, and going to have to fly all the way down to the end of that orange line to reach Accra, Ghana. And that actually doubles the distance. So I'm just going to show, I have the writing here. So, right, London to Accra flight, straight north to south. Distance is 3,162 statute miles. British Airways flight time 6 hours 30 minutes. 3,162 divided by 390 minutes, which is 6 hours 30 minutes, is 8.1076, right? 8.1 by 60 minutes is 486. So that would mean that the plane would be flying an average, the flights between London and Accra, on a stationary plane would be flying an average of 486.4 miles per hour. That's the average. It would have to fly to reach Accra, if it being that distance, it being 3,162 miles from London, in 6.5 hours, the plane would fly an average of 486.4 miles per hour. But if we take the first example, deviation distance, then that changes the distance because the plane has to take in the deviation, which means it will be flying 3,680 statute miles, and that would mean that it would be flying at 566 miles per hour as an average. Now, that's fair enough, right? Planes could do that, right? But if we take in the actual globe rotation deviation distance, it would make the flight 6,251, which is basically double the distance. So if we divide 6,251 by 390 minutes, we get 961 miles per hour, right? Now, that's very problematic because the reason it's problematic, let's go here. The reason it's problematic is, so for a flight from London, UK to reach Accra, Ghana in 6.5 hours, the plane needs to fly at a constant 961 miles per hour on a rotating globe. The Airbus A380 is the fastest commercial airliner in the world with a top speed of 737 miles per hour. What this means is that the fastest airliner in existence can't fly anywhere near fast enough for a flight from London to end up in Accra, Ghana 6.5 hours later if we were on a globe. If we lived on a just even globe or flat plane that was rotating at 15 degrees per hour, it can't make it. Now, as far as I know, there's no Airbuses flying from London to Accra, Ghana anyway. The Airbuses don't fly that route, as far as I know. But it doesn't matter because they couldn't do it anyway. This would make the flight from London to Accra, Ghana an impossibility on the globe Earth because they would have to account for the deviation in course and account for this massive change in speed. You're talking kind of double the speed of what the plane actually does because it has to be basically double to get to double the distance. And it has to take a route that is not straight north to south. It has to fly directly east, more or less. Now, what I got back from our opposition on this was the usual rubbish. And what was really funny is I had Wolfie and another pilot who people will know what they're called, Trevor Austin, right? Another commercial pilot. Now, I had them changing their stories around and contradicting each other on different things. But basically, every one of them came to the same thing. They came to the same claim that there will be no deviation. Now, that means if they're claiming there is no deviation north to south, they're also claiming there is no deviation east to west, west to east, south to north. That means that is the exact effect we would observe and experience if we were flying over a stationary Earth. So when they claim there is no deviation, they're claiming that the Earth is stationary because that's the exact effects that a stationary Earth would give you. The fact, because if there's no deviation, there's not going to be any rotation. Now they try and come up with rubbish about the conservation of momentum, and most of the time they won't even state which one they're claiming. If you ask them,
I don't think they know which one they're claiming.
Well, a lot of the time they don't. Yeah, that's true. They don't know which one they're claiming. But even if go on, sorry.
I just want to quickly give a shout out to Adam Meaken for the £5 super chat. Thank you very much, Adam. Lift, weight, drag, and thrust. You complete plumb at full. Yeah. He thinks it's going to be some kind of I got you because of weight, but they don't understand weight is not gravity. Gravity is not a force. It's simply just weight.
I don't know what's up with Phil. He comes here to get schooled, obviously. He comes up with like a random basic question showing his ignorance. It's outstanding, Phil.
He thinks it's somehow going to be a gotcha. I don't know how, but yeah.
Well, just listen to it, ballers. He's your satellite guy that comes up to a bunch of flat earthers to find out what the four forces fly on. But, that's why I thought I'll sponsor you for it. Shout out, Phil. Hope you learned something tonight. Particularly the first bit, the presentation, Phil. Notice how you wouldn't comment on that a little bit of diversion, eh, mate? Is it too powerful for you to actually deal with the point that was presented in the presentation? So that's what you asked me. Shows how weak your argument is, or how little proof you have, my friend, and how easy it is to destroy it. But you know, keep asking questions. Show me off, Phil. Carry on, son.
Well, back to the conservation of momentum. This is just for people out there, when they're dealing with this. When you try to, now I didn't have to do this. I didn't have to. As soon as they started saying the conservation of momentum, as soon as they started saying Wolfie and Trevor Austin and them started saying, "Oh, there won't be a deviation," that means you're claiming a stationary Earth. If you're claiming no deviation, you're claiming a stationary Earth. That's the end of that. And there's no need to go past that. But if they want to start talking about the conservation of momentum or the Coriolis effect, but they'll try and call it Coriolis force, it's actually only a pseudo force. So it's an effect. But if we start with the conservation of momentum, if you ask them which one they're claiming, which conservation of momentum they're claiming, if you get it out of them, if you force it out of them, those who know will say linear. But that's incorrect. That's a mathematical thing, and it involves straight lines. What they actually have to claim is angular momentum. Now, to conserve angular momentum, you need to be physically attached to the rotating object. So they try and make the claim that the air is rotating with the globe out. So there's no deviation because it's all rotating together and it's all conserving, even though they have their momentum wrong. They're trying to claim it's linear. It actually should be conserving angular momentum. But for the plane to conserve that angular momentum, it has to be on the ground. It can't conserve it. If it was rotating, it can't conserve it if it lifts off the ground. It can't conserve it anymore. Right? That's the conservation of angular momentum. So they have to switch it up and start calling it the conservation of linear momentum. Then they try and bring in the Coriolis force, which is a load of rubbish. There's no such thing. It's the Coriolis effect. The Coriolis effect is an apparent deviation. What they would have to deal with their flying is an actual deviation. There'd be no way around it. It's not an apparent thing. It's an actual deviation that they have to account for. If we go back to the part at the start, they have to deviate an actual deviation out from north to south to north to east and end up over here. They have no way out of it. But if they're claiming conservation of momentum or any other rubbish, then they're claiming that they're not, like, simply, are you claiming a deviation? No, there's no deviation. Then welcome to stationary Earth. There's no way around it. It's the same. They try and make claims like no correction for curvature proves curvature. No correction for rotation proves rotation. No, it's complete and utter gaslighting nonsense. No correction for curvature proves there is no curvature. No correction for rotation proves there is no rotation. That's the end of that. There's no need to go further than that. They want to talk and argue about the conservation of momentum and what the Coriolis effect force is, a lot of rubbish. They don't know what they're talking about. And they just keep on wanting to hijack reality, which is no accounting for curvature, no accounting for rotation, and try and claim that proves a rotating globe. It's crazy, but this is what they do.
Exactly. That's all they do. It's all they got at the end of the day. It's making claims without having any substance.
Yeah, there's no substance behind it.
Never ever is. I can't believe StreamYard actually, I thought it's only going to go up to like an hour, almost at an hour and a half now. So I hope it doesn't cut out. If it does cut out now, you guys know it's because of StreamYard.
Well, it's doing okay. We've more than half.
I'm just doing a check. 4 seconds. 3 seconds. Okay, the stream's still on. It just was because I thought the limit's like an hour or something because I haven't subscribed to StreamYard. Because you usually have to pay StreamYard to have, I think it's over an hour streams or something.
Shout out StreamYard then, Flats all day. Thanks for keeping the stream going.
Yeah, I mean, we wouldn't even have a stream tonight if it wasn't for StreamYard. So I really do appreciate it. Thank you, StreamYard.
Yeah, good on you, StreamYard.
Actually, very easy to use, by the way, guys.
I want
Much easier than OBS.
to shout out Phil Bell if I can. Phil, looking forward to your rebuttal video. Say no more. God knows what we're going to put in it. As long as you're not asking me more questions, eh? You demonstrating something, Phil.
So yeah, I just want to say thank you to you guys for coming on. I hope people were actually listening tonight to actually take it, because I saw there were quite a few people in the live watching you guys. So let's hope they were actually listening. So I really do appreciate you guys coming on.
Thanks. Appreciate it being here.
Yeah, no, it's always awesome. Would you guys be able to stick your links in the description box and the comments for the people to subscribe to you, and maybe give a shout out to your own channels as well?
Okay, 1 second now.
Yeah, guys, you subscribe to Logic.
So Michael, so gone, dude.
Yeah, see, very good stream. Definitely agree. Good stream. Thank you, Brian. I just want to say thank you to everybody that is supporting the channel. You guys are awesome. You guys are what makes this possible. Unfortunately, I think we're going to end the stream here because I got quite a headache and I am quite tired.
Brian does that here, to be fair.
Yeah, I tend to do that.
No, it's because I've been working this whole week. I've been working overtime every single night. So I'm literally been working like 12-hour days this whole week without non-stop, and then come and then do streams and stuff. So it's quite tiring.
Yeah, good spot. Good point to stop, mate. I think hopefully we got the point over. You know, look at what it's like. A lot of stuff. Look at the implications of their claim. You know, that's the greatest kind of disproof of it, because we don't experience. Hopefully, we could. The reason Brian likes flights so much is so many people have been on an airplane, and they've never gone right. It's Messerschmitt time. They've got to correct for that accumulated.
No, you see, Brian does it. The reason he likes flying is because by heart he wants to be Iron Man.
Yeah. Well, even if you take, sorry, Adam.
No. So, but that would be the reality. Flying like Iron Man, those sort of vectors, those straight lines. But remember the point: the accelerometer that I had, and more fundamentally, the gyroscope that the pilot uses defines those straight line vectors. That's what they're doing. Okay. The equipment they're flying with, that science defines as how it works, they have to deny that for them to explain what's going off. And they're going to have to use, obviously, the magic of gravity, aren't they? Now realigned gyroscopes, even though we all know it doesn't. But
yep.
Exactly. What I like about airplanes is that anyone can take a flight. It's not outside the remit of an everyday person. And even if you can't take a flight, you don't have the money, whatever, even homeless people have smartphones, right, in today's world. And they can connect to the internet, whether through like the local McDonald's Wi-Fi, whatever. And even homeless people can learn about how planes fly, what they do and what they don't do, and check out anything that's in this presentation from us, and see that what we say is 100% true. Even someone who's a homeless person can do that. So it's available to everybody. And that's what's really great about it. Just one last thing I'd like to say is that when it comes to the pitch data, now we've already said this, and Flatside has already backed me up on this, but Wolfie, who is a known commercial pilot on the circuit for years, right, has straight out refused to get the pitch data of 10 international long-haul flights. Not even one will he get. He will not get that. He refused to get that pitch data. Under no circumstances will he get it. Now, he could get it. I find it very difficult to get. I even went through airline captains and everything, and I'm finding it very difficult to get. Right? But he could get it, and blanket refuses to get it. Now, Trevor Austin, who is also a commercial pilot, he has refused to get the course data, right? That validate or invalidate that they're deviating for something. And he's refused to get that. So both commercial pilots are out there at the moment, especially Wolfie, because he's here 6-7 years, right, will not support our claims with official data. They refuse to support our claims. So there is no need for anyone on our side to continue paying attention. If we don't need to pay attention to them two, who are commercial pilots, then we don't need to pay attention to any of the rest of them. They're all irrelevant at this stage. It's unfortunate they're not all bad guys or bad girls, but they've become irrelevant. They're of no use to us. There's no point in arguing with them because they just want to go around in circles. And if the evidence was there, Wolfie and Trevor Austin would get it. They're commercial pilots, but they're not doing it. I'll leave it at that. Thank you. I know you have a headache, so you won't continue.
And it shows you the dishonesty, actually.
Yes.
So, any last words, Adam?
No, I think I've said all I need to say tonight. Hopefully, just please grasp the concept. Seems to be something that evaded me, but it is, like I said, it's an implication of living on a ball. That I look forward after tonight's show, Phil Bell providing a rebuttal to. So I think we'll come on.
I think Adam, when it comes up, you want to come and review it on my channel. We'll do it live.
Oh,
how's that?
I think that would be magical, wouldn't it?
Yeah, we can review it live and we can rip it apart. Because I can already tell you he's probably going to debunk himself in the opening statement.
I've had a couple of these from Phil where we've said things online and he chat skanks and makes another false promise of what he's going to do. But we'll see if he's a man of his word or not, won't we, I suppose?
Yeah, we'll see. But yeah, as soon as it's up, I think we get in touch and then we come and review it live together. It'll be quite cool.
Maybe with Phil? Just invite Phil as well. Come on, Phil.
Yeah,
I'm more than happy. Come on.
Welcome to come on. The problem is he keeps making excuses not to come on.
Doesn't surprise me.
Because they're all just keyboard warriors at the end of the day.
There's a chat skanking. It's easy to say things, isn't it? And also, more importantly, are you a man of your word? You showed to the chat tonight, mate, whether you are. You're about to demonstrate whether your words are worth even paying attention to, because you're going to produce a video. So we all look forward to it.
It's going to be great.
Go, Phil. Go, Phil. Go.
Yeah, it would be great. So, yeah, I just want to say thank you to you guys for coming again. Really did enjoy it. It's nice and relaxing having you guys on. It's not stressful or anything. So that's what I like about it. And yeah, I just want to say thank you to everybody for the support. And yeah, you guys are awesome. My channel is growing so steadily, so I cannot complain at all. Everything's starting to fit into place, and it's because of all the support I get from everybody. Yeah, so I really do appreciate it. I'm planning now building my studio in the garage now, December, when I get back from the sea. So that's going to be exciting. I want to get a green screen as well, some proper lighting. So I got big plans for this channel, guys. I just got myself the DaVinci Resolve, and I'm going to be doing some VFX things as well. So very excited for the future.
I'll give you a shout out, mate. It's nice to have something early evening, because you go out at a nice time for the UK. I know we have the time shifts for the equinoxes, but you go out at a nice time, and there's not been anything since Ranty's and Brandon's that has filled that void. So I'm enjoying it. I might not always be in chat, but pretty much most of the time I'm listening. So Yeah, keep it up, bro. Hopefully, listeners, that we can make it at least with the views. I'm not asking for money, at least with the views. Share and like this, because hopefully we can make it worth Flat Soil's time to keep it going. So
No, it's definitely worth the time.
forward,
I'm
mate.
enjoying it. To me, it's I'm really enjoying actually doing this as just talking to everybody and having people on and stuff. So I just out of the enjoyment itself, it's enough for me. Unfortunately, the trolls do get kind of hectic sometimes, but I've learned to just ignore them and move on. And I take it as positive feedback if the trolls come in, because that means I'm at the right place. So yeah,
Something that I learned over time was, and it's become more and more prevalent, is I used to have this thing where I had to reply to everybody's comment. I was replying to comments because I had it in my head that anyone who's not in this arena, who might stroll in and read some comment from some baller, and I didn't reply to this comment, then they might get turned away or think that I don't know what I'm talking about, or think that the baller is right or whatever. But I come to the point of realization that the people we deal with are actually inconsequential now. That the ordinary everyday person wouldn't just come in there and read some comments from these people and go, "Oh, that must be the answer," and that must be the answer then, and go away. No, life has changed, the world has changed, and people in general are a lot more suspect, and they won't just accept any old nonsense. And the people we deal with, they want to try and keep us on a circuit where we keep going around in circles, where I debate Craig now, and then I debate Toon next week, and then the Cats the other week. Like, what's the point? Who wants to do that? They want to keep you on a circuit because that keeps them relevant. But these people are not relevant, and the ordinary everyday person wouldn't listen to them. I had it in my head they would, but they won't. So I'm not bothered about so much about replying to comments or trolls now. There's more comments I don't reply to than I do reply to on my channel, because I'm not really too bothered. Most of the time it's just mostly just trying to poison the well, character assassination. They never address the video or whatever your presentation is. They're always trying to address some sub point to it, or it's some nonsense that is not addressing the point. And that's what
it.
they want to do.
They're not the argument. I love doing that.
You said earlier, so they're not worth. I don't look. I don't deal with trolls or anything. Anybody sends me a message that seems genuine, I always respond to. But it's about how close you are to the target. The more close you are to making pertinent points, the more attention you'll get from these muppets, which is why you're getting attention, dude. Don't respond to it. They're not. What's the phrase? Don't cast your pearls to swine. Stick to what you're doing, and know that what you're doing is driving them so mad, that they're having to behave like this.
That's the truth.
As Brian says, there's nothing to deal with them anymore. They only exist because of us. And if we look at this in a systems point of view, the system wants us to engage with them.
Mm-hmm.
That time's gone to engage with them. We're out here to disseminate the truth, not argue with you muppets as you deny reality, try to redefine level, horizontal. Yeah, those days are gone. So either bring your arguments, like as I've said to Phil tonight, bring your rebuttals. We're happy because we're interested in the truth. Not being right or wrong doesn't matter. We're interested in the truth. So bring it, Phil, and ignore them, mate, because every nasty snide comment, and the more ad hominem it gets, the bigger the compliment they're paying you, because that's the only recognition they can give you.
Well, what we've seen over the years is every time it gets to the point of them definitively proving their claims, they run. They don't prove them. Like Wolfie and Trevor Austin, two commercial pilots, they are refusing to prove their claims. Let's take Ranty, right? Ranty had a drone. He could have gone to where that photographer was, Peter Jackson, whatever the man's name was, and he could have flown his drone up and showed the mountain rising up behind the tower, and flown it down and shown the mountain going down below the tower, purely due to the optical effect of a visual, or what's known as photographic occultation. Now, he could have done that with his drone, but instead he decided not to do it. And I'm not saying he's relevant, but I'm just saying every time there is when it's time for proof, nothing. Just obfuscation and nonsense, personal attack. There's never proof. And the longer we engage with the people who are in the arena and continually engage with them, we'll never get anything done. Nothing's ever going to happen with these people. They just want us. They'd argue with us till we get to the point of we're so old we end up dying. They'd be happy with it.
What do you think their kryptonite word is if we give it to them? Demonstrate.
The kryptonite is they're emotional vampires. These people. I said, yeah, they're trying to take your energy, yeah, that we're building, and direct it towards them for them to engage with them. It doesn't matter what you say; it bounces off them because they're not interested in listening.
Like you see the trolls today, this morning, they type they're going to strike against my channel. They don't want to comment for a week to see how the channel's doing. So the whole thread. So I said, "Oh, awesome! Please do that. Let's see if you guys are going to hold out." What do you think is happening? They're still commenting in that thread.
So they're markers, aren't they? I remember that. Do you remember the trolls, Rumpus and the likes, and Miles the Liar Davis deciding they were going to boycott Nathan's, and Flat Earth was dying 4 years ago. And like I say, mate, every bit is a compliment. Every bit. If they've now they work in patterns, don't they? They work in patterns. So if you've already progressed to that stage, when we're at this level of we're going to stop engaging, yeah, then what a great compliment. Take it and say thank you very much is what I'd say.
That's what I said. I literally just said, well, yeah, let's see how long you guys are gonna last, because they are so addicted to it, and they're still just carrying on commenting after they said they're not going to anymore. It's sad.
Yeah, I mean, if you at random, let's just say, banned any 10 of them, what difference would it make? Would you be missing any of those personalities?
No, that's create a new account. That's all they do.
Yeah, but I'm just saying, like, would you miss any of their personalities? You wouldn't miss any if you just could block forever any 10 of the ballers. Would it ever matter to you that you like? There might be a couple. There's a couple of them out there that I have had some discourse with, and they weren't bad guys and whatever. Okay, I'll take that. So there's always a few casualties, but I mean, they're in the minority. Like, the amount of, let's just say, time wasters and attention seekers and pretenders pretending to be things they're not. Like, we've all got told this, but I remember 2015, I had ballers trying to tell me that they were astronauts, that they actually were astronauts. I had fellas trying to claim to me they were astronauts in 2015. That told me everything I needed to know.
Yeah, like Veach. M. Scott Veach says his dad was an astronaut. I mean, really.
But yeah, I basically, even before he turned up in 2015, he wasn't there. I had actual people in YouTube comments trying to claim that they actually were an astronaut. That's how desperate they were in 2015. I mean, how desperate would you have to be at the very start of this battle to start claiming that you were an astronaut as some kind of proof? So that showed how little proof they had in 2015. That's 7 years, almost 8 years ago now. So if that's what they had,
right.
Look
at the engagement. Right,
Yeah,
you got the supposed Professor Phil Bell, who's somebody that deals with orbital mechanics, that should be able to discuss exactly how you deal with this sort of thing, exactly how planes deal with it. But the way in which he engages in chat is to come in after that presentation and try to move it sideways, with a prove you know what you're talking about, with the spastic question. What are the four forces of flight? And that's the reason I super chatted it. Not because it is a good show. I'm not saying that. I'm not because how good the show is, but just to highlight, because it was so pathetic. That's their That's their guy that's in here checking up because, like I said, the sheep, they follow protocol, which is why the boycott is a great compliment. You're at stage 4 of Flat Earth channels and how to suppress them. Yeah. And they're so predictable, but more importantly, as demonstrated tonight, they're not worth engaging with. This is a supposed professor. And what he brings to the table is just more confirmation that we know we're dealing with Muppets. He doesn't say, no, consider this, guys.
Well,
Something from my scholarly learning that you should consider in your appraisal this evening. No.
well, he's the same guy that keeps telling me gravity causes gas to not move in a vector anymore.
Because they're a clown show that aren't interested in getting to the truth. They're interested in just.
He thinks gas loses so much kinetic energy that it's not going to move in the same vector anymore. If it's bounced off something, it can only change direction with a collision. That's it. He just doesn't get that.
Kinetic energy would involve temperature, something you can't have without a container.
Mm-hmm.
You know, all of their like they want to hijack reality. So he wants to hijack kinetic energy, which is a way of describing how heat and temperature affects gas. Let's just say he wants to hijack that and somehow use it as a proof. It's like, no, kinetic energy is input or extracted from gas via temperature. So more heat, more kinetic energy. Less heat, less kinetic energy. That's how it works. So less kinetic energy causes a gaining in density. More kinetic energy causes a lessening in density. That's how it's described. But the point is that kinetic energy is temperature, something impossible to have within a container. But they want to, it's always delta X. They always go straight past it.
Yeah, and it would never change the direction of the gas, ever. It literally just changes the temperature, as you said. It doesn't change the direction. The direction can only change once it has a collision. So in other words, if there's gas coming back, it's literally having a collision somewhere.
And that's the point. Wherever you explore their claim, and that's what they won't do, and that's why they're worth leaving behind. They'll waffle. Gravity pulls it down. I'll quote the rumpus. Imagine like they're on little springs. These are some of the rebuttals you get. Yeah. But fundamentally, all of these known proofs and the proofs that got them their degree in X, Y, and Z, whatever, are contradictory to their claim because we know how gas behaves. We know what happens. Straight line in the direction created by the last collision. Okay, that's these are simple things that they abide by 1 minute, and this is the point. And then, for the sake of the ball, they have to abandon. And they're the things that are just worth focusing on for me. Those contradictions, and you realise you've got a contradiction the second that somebody doesn't rebut it, and they say, "I'm going to do a video on that," and never do.
We're looking forward to it. So,
yeah.
I just have to say thank you, Face Reality, for the $2 super chat. Really appreciate it. Ballers are simply in denial. Fear tactics. Yep, it's all just fear tactics because they have to fight the fear of it not being a globe. Yeah. Go on.
No, you go ahead. Sorry.
No, I just wanted to say, thank you guys again for coming. I really do want to go sleep now.
Yeah, you're half an hour over.
Hey, I see Adam's got a beard.
Oh, did you? I caught the wrong mute, but it's getting pretty. My wife's going to kill me if I don't shave it soon. But she went away to Italy and it's developed somewhat.
My stubble grows so quickly. My wife doesn't like it either, but I just can't use any ordinary blades. It's one of those. It's not bump flop. It's one of those that just, if I use a blade, it makes it blunt straight away.
Yeah, I'm the same. Sorry, I've
not put a blade on my face for 10 years, mate. The best I do is trim it. No, I wouldn't. Can't.
I literally have to use my hair trimmer, and then I can use what's the name? The blades that the barbers use. I got a nice Italian blade and stuff, but
Yeah.
yeah, even that, it gets blunt after a while. I have to get a new one, or because if I do get those normal shave blades like the Schick and the Mark III and stuff, I go through blades like it's out of fashion. And then you get my brother, that just takes him 5 months to grow a little measly Hitler mustache.
Yeah, you end up cutting. I actually stopped shaving with razors simply because I just trim it, and I trim it down tight, but I always end up with some stubble because my stubble is so hard that I ended up actually damaging my skin, because I was having to use razors that were going blunt as I was using them sometimes. So it's not healthy for you.
I think this is the time I should talk about my sponsors. I was joking.
Yeah.
You let.
Yes, again, thanks guys for coming. Tomorrow night, there's probably be another show. I haven't worked out a topic yet, so I'll have a poll tomorrow. You guys can vote what the topic would be. Thank you again, Adam and Brian, for coming. Really do appreciate it. Again, we should do this again sometime because you guys really do bring awesome information to the table. Yeah. So thank you guys for being here. Thank you everybody else that's coming. I'm definitely going to go sleep now. It was actually nice having a bit of a different type of stream tonight. I think sometimes it's also good to just change from the normal now and then. So yeah, thank you again, everybody. Till tomorrow night. God bless. May the pressure be with you. And then end.